Today I want to talk about something that sooner or later is going to happen in your healing sessions if it hasn't already. And it's something that too many hypnosis practitioners don't know about. And that is myoclonic shaking. So what is myoclonic shaking, you ask? Well, myoclonus refers to muscle twitches. Most people experience this as they're falling asleep. You know how the arms and legs can kind of jerk involuntarily as you're sort of drifting off to sleep? Well, that's the body releasing the nervous energy from the nervous system of the body as you're falling asleep. And it can happen in sessions. With varying degrees of intensity. So the client might have some twitching or a little bit of quivering going on, or you can have more of a quaking going on, or literally be shaking. I had one client whose legs were shaking so much, the whole chair was vibrating. So that was more of an intense kind of a myoclonic shaking going on. But this can be frightening for some clients, so it's important that you know about it so that you can remain calm and guide them through that process. Now, I first learned about myoclonic shaking back in the early 90s when I was reading a book called Paradox in Healing. It's written by a couple of doctors, but it really wasn't until I was practicing hypnotherapy that I witnessed it firsthand in a session. And this really is something that hypnotherapy practitioners need to know how to handle. You need to know how to recognize it, and they just don't teach this to you in hypnosis school. Now, the book was written by a couple of MDs, Doctors Peter Greenwood and Peter Nunn, a couple of Peters, two Petes. And they were actually using acupuncture in the Meridian pain clinic, so they were treating pain patients. And they've written papers on this. They also wrote extensively about it in their book. And something they observed, particularly with whiplash patients, were three phenomena that are linked to blocked emotional charge in the body. The first phenomenon was emotional release. So the patient would be crying or they would be laughing, one or the other, but that is an emotional release going on. The second thing that they noticed was this myoclonic shaking, which is a vibratory muscle movement that can actually mimic an epileptic seizure. So it can be kind of scary. It can be scary for you too if you think the client's having an epileptic, event, when in fact it's the musculature of the system of the body itself is releasing energy. Now, the third thing that they witnessed was regression. Hello! They realized that the patient would spontaneously start reliving a previously traumatic event. Are you interested now? Something else they noticed, that these three things happened together. And when they did, it was a healing crisis. So there would be a physical and an emotional and a mental expression of the blocked energy, and that would be then followed by a dramatic reduction in pain immediately. The client would feel better. So they started to theorize about this, and they wrote papers about it, and they theorized that the standard practice of suppressing these states with tranquilizers and with muscle relaxants actually blocked the body's natural healing response. Hello! Are you interested now? So this has to do with trauma. The problem is that there was a freeze response and it caused the energy of the event to get trapped in the nervous system of the body. And what Doctors Peter and Doctors Peter recognized was that the healing process is natural. How cool is that? So there are others in the field. Now, this is the early 90s we're talking about when this book was written. We're in the 21st century now, and now this is sort of starting to break out into the field of psychology and medicine. And so there now are others in the field that are endorsing this very same view. For example, Dr. Peter Levine, who wrote a wonderful book called Waking the Tiger. I really recommend that you read that. Another wonderful book to read is The Body Bears the Burden. That is written by Dr. Robert Scaer, who is another expert. And Doctors Levine and Scaer have actually worked together and have sort of ratcheted each other up in a number of ways. And another area of interest for me is the German New Medicine, or meta medicine. Is something that may interest you as well, because that's also connected to these elements that we're talking about today. And that's the biological conflict that causes the body to respond to the perception of threat. Something all mammals do. We are mammals. Human beings are mammals. And that is that when we are faced with a threat, the nervous system goes on red alert. It's called a stress response. Once the threat has passed, then the energy of the event will be discharged by the body. So it's released from the body, and that is what extinguishes the trauma. So, you know, if the hawk swoops down and catches the bunny's helpless. There's nothing it can do. It's dangling there in the claws, and it's going to be eaten by the hawk. It can't fight. It can't run away. It has nothing, it's not able to do anything else, so it freezes. The energy system freezes. And if for whatever reason, and this actually happens a lot more commonly than you might think, if the hawk fumbles or the eagle fumbles and it drops the bunny, and the bunny manages to escape, well, you know, it lives another day. Once that threat is gone, something really interesting happens. The bunny will kind of lie limp as if it were dead, because it's still in this freeze response. And so it will sort of rest quietly, and then the body will start to quake physically, and it will quake more and more violently. And what's happening is the nervous system of the body is releasing the energy from the tissues. So there will actually be, for example, the legs will start to move, because the legs are running. They're running from the threat. It's discharging all the energy that didn't get released in the legs. I actually witnessed this myself. I experienced this myself in my own hands. I've also experienced it in my own body. So, and it's a very interesting, well, the way I experienced it was, I could actually feel it was like a cold energy flowing down my legs, and it was being discharged out through the bottoms of my feet. But the way that I experienced it in my hand was, so one of my cats is a great hunter, and he lives off mice. So he's a good hunter, a good mouser. But one day he caught something, and I had no idea what it was. He brought it in the house, and it was still alive. And so it was running around, and I thought it was a baby ferret. And I thought, oh my gosh, he's caught somebody's pet ferret. Well, by the time I tried to catch this little creature, Mike, my hunter, grabbed it and went out the door with it, and I was chasing after him, and I caught him kind of just before he dove under the house. And by then, this little creature, which could fit in the palm of my hand, but it looked like a ferret. For all intents and purposes, it looked dead. I thought, oh, I'm too late. I'm holding it in the palm of my hand. So I thought, well, I don't know what it is, but I thought I would just, take it. And I looked a little more closely, and I could see that it wasn't dead, but it was probably going to be pretty soon. And so I just held it in my hand, and I was doing energy work on it, sending energy into it. And it started to quake. Its whole body just started to shake. And I kid you not, the energy rippled through its body from the top of its head down to the bottoms of its feet. And it was like this quake. And I could feel it surging in the palm of my hand, and its whole body was quaking. But the energy was moving down the body. And it took quite a while for this to stop. I probably was standing there with it in my hands for about 10 minutes. And so it just kept quaking and quaking, and I understand now what was happening. It was, it was releasing that energy. But once it had finished releasing, it just laid there limply. And that could be just because I was holding it. I'm not sure. But so what I did was I put it on a towel in a box, and I just left it to rest and sort of covered it. And I kept going back and checking on it. I'd leave it for 20 minutes and I'd go and look and he was still lying there, and I would go back another 20 minutes later and he would still be lying there. And it was about an hour later I went back and I lifted the towel again, expecting it to be lying there, because I fully expected it to die. I thought it was too traumatized by, being chased and what have you. And I lifted the towel, and here's this little creature inside the box, and it's like running around and jumping, and it was just full of vim and vigor. So it turns out that what it was a marten, a baby marten. And they're quite an endangered species here, actually. So I saved a little life and I got him off to the vet, and the vet was happy to receive him, because apparently he'd just written a paper on this species. So he was very happy to have him, and they were going to release him into the wild. So just so you know, he lived, the patient lived. Humans are mammals, and we do the same thing. We have the same responses. When we're not able to run, when we're not able to defend ourselves, when we're trapped, then there's a freeze response. We lock in the energy of the event, and it gets trapped in the body. And we discharge that energy through kind of an epileptic sort of quaking movement. It's the muscles releasing that energy. The problem we have as human beings is that we've kind of come up with an evolutionary disadvantage when it comes to traumatic experience, and that is that we think. We develop this frontal lobe area here, and so we have this ability to think. And what we do is we tend to use thinking to override our feelings. So rather than allowing the body to just do what it was designed to do and allowing it to discharge the event, we hold on to it and we lock it into the body, and then we use logic and reason to deal with the traumatic event. And of course that just doesn't work. So this freeze response that locks in the energy into the body is what's called kindling, okay? We call it sensitizing. It's what sensitizes a person to subsequent re-stimulation or triggering. So the unprocessed energy of the event, it's still there, trapped in the body, which means that all you have to do is go and poke a stick at it, and it's going to activate the response again. It's not gone. It's still in the body. And this is what Doctors Greenwood and Nunn, in Paradox of Healing, discovered. They discovered that if you unfreeze the freeze response, it will activate the body's own healing system, and the body will discharge the energy of the trauma. So if the body starts to quake, if you've got a client in the chair and you're into a traumatic event, and there's a lot of emotional intensity, and their body starts to shake, let it. Encourage the client to let the body do what it's doing. Don't freak out. Now you know. The body knows how to heal. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do. Tell the client, that's good. Your body's doing what it was always meant to do. It's letting go of the energy of this event. Now, sometimes the energy of the body will just simply reach ignition. It's like the kindling will ignite, and it starts to burn off all of the biochemical stress hormones and all of the energy of the event. It's burning it off. So let it, encourage it. Make it safe for the client to accept what's happening. Make it acceptable. Just let it complete that discharging process, because when it's done, it's done. They will notice a profound shift inside. This is releasing the trauma of the event. So that is myoclonic shaking, and it's a good thing. And if it happens in one of your sessions, you're going to remember this now, aren't you? And you're going to know exactly what to do. Let the body do what it was meant to do. It's releasing, discharging, extinguishing the energy of the traumatic event, so the person doesn't have to carry it around anymore. They're literally liberating themselves from that charge. Cool, huh? Okay, I hope you found something that's going to benefit you here today. I know that this was a very important piece of information for me to acquire. I'm working with clients, so you might notice just a quivering, somewhere in the body. It could be the hands, it could be the feet start to shake, it could be kind of a ripple that goes through the face or whatever. And when that's happening, you'll know releasing is taking place. You want to stay right there. something wonderful is going to happen as a result. Okay, that's it for this time. Please leave your comments in the forum. I want to hear from you. What else do you want to know about? Tell me, I'm here for you. And until next time, this is Wendie signing off. I'll see you again real soon.